Check, 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 check. Audio. Check, check, check.
Check, check, check.
Is coming sound?
Is coming sound?
Amazing, finally.
Amazing, finally.
Okay, so hello again.
So hello again.
I hope now it will be
without without any problems.
So again, I will slowly, shortly repeat what I was telling before.
My name is Stanislav Glazov. I think you know me. I'm media artist and
audiovisual producer,
and
educator from Berlin. So I do computer graphics since around 22 years, music since around 18 years. I can easily say that TouchDesigner and Bitwig are my favorite programs. And recently, both companies produced a new release. So I think it can be. Now is better. No echo. Because I'm going from the OBS with two mics, with two output devices, and now I reduce it to one channel. Check, check, check. Check, 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 check. Okay. It was two channels in the OBS. Now I reduce it a bit, the volume. Hopefully it's no distortion anymore. Okay, cool. Thank you for feedback. So, okay, what I want to make today in the stream, I wanted to show some things which are new in both TouchDesigner and Bitwig, and to speak about and show some examples of audio-visual synchronization between Bitwig and TouchDesigner, and tell a bit about the program, the workshop we run on Monday. It's first online course we do about Bitwig and TouchDesigner together, and show some additional helpful info on the end of the today's stream. So let's start from the TouchDesigner. So basically now we have a new version called 2023, and in comparison to a lot of older releases of TouchDesigner, I found nothing super spectacular to show it on the stream, but still I made some interesting, as I think, examples which we can practically use even if you don't have so much of technical background. For people who are in the stream right now, how much of you use TouchDesigner or even open a TouchDesigner? Can you write with pluses? So I just need to know how much of you using Bitwig and how much of you using TouchDesigner in order to know how deep technically I should go. So I will open several projects I prepared for today. Okay, so basically in new TouchDesigner, most of updates for my for information I know are related to depth cameras and body tracking, which is not really deeply related to audiovisual production. However, we can use that for making interactive music. So I can show some example later. Second, very small but significant related to media server workflow update is work with time code, because earlier in TouchDesigner we only had two operators for reading LTC in, LTC out. These two operators were able to read LTC timecode and send LTC timecode, which we could use for synchronization. And now we have a special new operator called timecode, which is able to produce the Python object, and this Python object will contain all data about running timecode. And what is interesting, for example, if we want to play back some movies, we typically were using the timer chop, which is a special component which can run the relative timeline, or other words, timeline which is related to some event. And earlier we needed just to click initialize and start, and the timer was run. And timer was cool because we could use it for scheduling of different animations. So now what is very cool, that time control for this timer could be related to some timecode object. And if I click it like that, we can connect it to the timecode operator, and it will play back this animation related to the timecode, which can give us the possibility to make very flexible control for all animations and content playback in TouchDesigner related to external timecode. And especially for today, because we're speaking mostly about audiovisual production and music, I found a very interesting trick that we can use. We can generate timecode using MIDI. So if we go to Bitwig and we go to the settings, in synchronization department, we can find the possibility to send different data over MIDI. And for example, we have, so I installed here loop MIDI adapter, which can send MIDI data between applications inside of one computer locally. And I can enable the MTC, which means MIDI timecode. Also here in MTC rate, I can set up how much frames per second we want to send. There are actually 4 choices for 24 frames per second, 25 frames per second, 29.97 frames per second for drop frame timecode and 30 frames per second. And if I set it to 30 frames per second, then I enabled the sending MIDI timecode over this adapter. Then I can go to TouchDesigner and go to the MIDI device mapper, enable loop MIDI port as a input MIDI device, and then if I click in Bitwig on playback, go back to TouchDesigner, we can see that MIDI device starts to send MIDI timecode data. It's a bit strange represented, so I spent some time to research the data format, and I found the way how we can convert it to the actual data about frames, seconds, minutes, and hours. And that setup can give us the possibility to synchronize video playback between Bitwig and TouchDesigner. So, which is very cool, because a lot of forums about Bitwig are looking for solutions how we can play back video without any other effects in synchron. So basically what we need to make in order to convert this MIDI data to the timecode. I was made to select chops where I selected quarter frame 0, 2, 4 and 6. That sentence means that select every second channel starting from 0, rename it to frame, seconds, minutes and hour, and the same for odd channels, quarter frame 1, 3 and 5. Then I needed to make this, to convert this data using mat chop, and I just multiplied it by 16 and put integer floor. And on second chop I've created the in our operation, I multiplied it by 16 and then rescaled it from 0 to 1 to the range from 0 to 16 again. And then we just added these channels together. And quarter frame 7 is converted to from 0 to 1, so I multiplied to by 16, and then I divided it by 2, and that returns 0, 1, 2 or 3 depending on the, I think there is a mistake here, depending on the timecode format sent. So I can even retrieve from the MIDI data the timecode format. Then I connected the output of this mat to the timecode operator, which can deal as a main timeline in TouchDesigner. And for that, timecode operator has different modes, different options in which mode it can run, and one of these modes is by chop channels properly named. So in that case I just drop the chop operator here and this timecode will perform properly. So using this simple setup, maybe not so simple, we can synchronize actually any program which can send MTC, Ableton, Bitwig to video playback in TouchDesigner. Okay, this is one of examples which are related to the new stuff in new release. Also thing which is a bit strange but might be helpful, that in new TouchDesigner release we have now a GLSL comp, and this is a user interface element which we can use for designing buttons, sliders, any kind of controls, which is written directly by GLSL code and using mostly SDF functions, which means signed distance field functions. We can generate the nice buttons which are independent from resolution, so it will be always drawn with a perfect quality. For that, we don't have any proper way to receive the data if our mouse is inside of button or outside of button, outside of this component, or at least I didn't found that. So basically the GLSL code itself knows that information. There are some prepared functions for that, and for example I made a small edit of default component, so I just used free textures, and if I go now inside of this component, and by default this button is textured by noise, I can enter my button here, my mouse cursor here, and it will replace the texture, and if I click it will replace the texture again, so I can sample the textures from this button. So this way you can create funny buttons. I don't know how much it's helpful, but for people who are fans to create custom user interfaces, it could be interesting. Some small other updates. So basically I think after this maybe a bit boring TouchDesigner part, I will go more for Bitwig part because it's much more funny. So what we have else, if you want to design custom user interfaces or custom components, now we have these sequence parameters in TouchDesigner. So we can create the custom set of parameters in different form. So for example, I created here two parameters. One of them is integer, one of them is float, and now using this plus minus button I can add the sets of these parameters. So you can create a sequential parameters, and it's quite easy. So I will show small example how we can do that. So I just create any component, and even without Python code we can go to customize component, we can create a custom page, and inside of this page we can create a sequence parameter. So now I created this new sequence parameter, and we need to add several parameters which will be inside of this sequence. So for example, I can create a float parameter, call it radius, for example. And in order to assign this radius to the new sequence, I click with right mouse button and tell in menu add to sequence. So now this radius is a part of new sequence, and then we can create a sequence of these parameters. So it's quite practical. So what else? Also very practical thing, especially working with audio in all the TouchDesigner versions. If we were creating audio device in, and we wanted to define which device we're going to use. It was always a headache to control it from the user interface, because the name of parameters was created by this super long strange string. And now we have a very cool operator called audio devices, which returns all connected audio devices. We can choose between different audio drivers, between ASIO and direct sound or core audio, and it will automatically return the proper string for our device. So now we can just use this table and select a device by the number, for example, like that. Also, what we have new, we have here the body track, which can take any of top operators containing image. For my experience, it worked not very stable, so just now TouchDesigner was crashed. And for tests I made before, the quality of tracking I was also not super happy with. So basically I still will be on the side to using the media pipe like I was used before. So most of other news or new features we have in TouchDesigner are mostly very technical, so I will not really go deep into that right now. One thing, we have now very nice and fancy, so I can create picture. Set camera. And we have now a very nice bloom effect, which we can easily control. Nice working, magical glow. And yeah, I will show that in another part of the lesson today, of the stream. So do you have any questions? Please ask. So also, who from you is using Bitwig? Okay, I will wait for answers. Hopefully everything is still good online. So now let's turn slowly to the Bitwig part. And then after I will show several things we have in Bitwig, several updates we have in Bitwig, I want also to show how the TD Bitwig integration works. Yes, Bitwig works with OSC. There is a free package for OSC control, but basically if you're going to use Bitwig with TouchDesigner, TD Bitwig is also based on OSC, but you don't need to care a lot about the OSC thing, because it's all integrated in a bunch of Bitwig devices we have in TouchDesigner. So first, for several people who are online now and for might be who will look to the stream later and who are coming from Ableton, I want to tell, since I discovered that Bitwig can open Ableton projects, I actually stopped completely to use Ableton because Bitwig is just amazing. And I want to express my love to Bitwig very loud and tell why. Because of very consistent and straightforward workflow, and because of its modularity with complexity of TouchDesigner, but with flexibility and user-friendly of, let's say, Resolume, speaking on the language of visual artists. So it's super simple. But most powerful thing here is you have amazing workflow for modulation, and it's kind of very generative, but you still have a lot of artistic control. So let's slowly go into details. And what you see now is a polymer device. Polymer is kind of one of the most modular devices in Bitwig. So it has several blocks. Every of these blocks contains the typical synthesizer part. So in any kind of synthesizer workflow, you typically have oscillator, you have the filter, you have a DSR or any kind of envelope generator, and here in the polymer device we can easily select from the bunch of choices. So we can replace this slot by other device. So for example, we can replace the union oscillator by, let's say, wavetable oscillator. Then the same for filter. We can just go with traditional Moog inspired low pass MG. We can replace it by XP, by Oberheim. We can replace also the envelope generator, and for example, instead of having complete ADSR, we can just take AD. And also what is very consistent, very straightforward in Bitwig, a lot of devices can modulate other devices. So they produce the control signal completely the same way like in modular synthesizers, and we can, so I think I will move this video a bit off the working area, and we can everywhere where we can see this dot with arrow, which means the output, we can map to something. For example, we see this arrow output from the envelope generator, and by default envelope generator is logically mapped to the volume, but we can additionally control something else with output of this envelope, for example the index of wavetable. And actually even that you already cannot create with Ableton. So even that simple trick, if it's not designed in Ableton device, you have no choice. Maybe you can use the Max for Live device, but the problem is after you created 6, 7, maybe 8 of Max for Live devices, your CPU is done. So basically Bitwig can help you to create much more flexible setups. Good question. I see all questions in the chat. I will go into them later. I cannot predict that I can answer any of questions, but if I see some interesting question which is outside of my knowledge, it will be the source of next research for me. So I will come to the questions a bit later. So, okay. Let's go now and check what we have new in Bitwig 5.1. First, we have a bunch of new devices. For example, we have a new oscillator called Byte. Which is basically morphing oscillator between two wave shapes, between two oscillators, which has several modulation options inside. So first we have the oscillator A and oscillator B. Then both of these oscillators can be modulated with pulse width modulation, with frequency modulation. Then we have phase modulation. We have sync for incoming MIDI node, and we have a ring modulation. So I can also put here the oscilloscope so we can see the wave shape produced. Okay, so that's at least it's very powerful oscillator. So every of two oscillators has a selection of different shapes. And now I want to show also a very cool feature of Bitwig and some new devices, some new modulators we have built in on top. So basically in every synthesizer in Bitwig, in any synthesizer based on MIDI, we can make a voice stacking. Voice stacking will automatically generate several voices. So which makes every synthesizer polyphonic. And if I select the synthesizer, I can go here on synthesizer properties, find a voice stacking, and I can generate several voices. So for example, I can make 4 voices, let's say. What is new in Bitwig 5.1 related to the voice stacking? One new thing is that we can solo every voice. So now I can only hear the data, the sound produced by voice number 4, for example. And I can disable solo. So basically now all voices doing the same thing. But Bitwig would be something different if we would not have some kind of easygoing generative control how we spread these voices. And for that, for example, we can go into modulators and create the voice stacking stack spread device. And what stack spread is doing, we can directly tell to every voice, to every channel, what happens with the values. And it has a bunch of practical options. So we have manual control. In that case, we can set value of every voice directly. For example, like that. And now we can test the difference between every voice. Nothing happens because we need to map this modulator to some parameter. For example, I can disable the key track here and map the voices to the pitch offset. And I will just set it to 12. So now every voice will sound differently. And altogether will sound more polyphonic. What is also interesting that these values can be also mapped not only to the pitch, but also to any of parameters. For example, I can make that every of these voices will start to sound in different time using the attack. So I can click on voice tag out and control the attack parameter on the envelope generator. And maybe also decay. Then I can create a second voice tag if I want to have maybe more randomness in control. So I can go and say stack spread. And then I can create, for example, some distribution between value range. For example, we have 0 to 1 distribution evenly. We have -1 to 1 distribution evenly. We have a Fibonacci sequence, which will make the golden ratio between voices. We can make the random distribution bipolar and unipolar. So for example, I will make the random bipolar and map this to the filter. So that's one of examples how we can use voice tagging with new devices. Also, I want to show the bunch of several other new devices. So basically, we have a new device called Filter Plus, which is also a modular device containing two parts. One of the parts is a wave shaper, and second part is a filter. And also has built-in LFO modulation and built-in envelope follower. So it's super powerful device which can make very interesting deformation of sound. And before I start to speak about these wave shapers, I want to visualize what is actually the wave shaper is. So basically it's, if we turn back to TouchDesigner, and if we imagine we have some value, so for example I have a slider, and if I will move the slider, it will produce linear okay, I don't really move it super linear with constant speed, but basically it produces the linear result. If we want to remap this to something else, we can use so-called lookup table. And in that case, for example, I can create something like S-curve, which is produce a B-spline segment or half cosine segment. Can also produce logarithmic curve, arctangent curve. So if I connect this to the second input of lookup and I compare the results created by, outputted by this device, we can see the difference. If I will output all channels in a single graph, you can see that red line is linear and yellow line is deformed. Basically, wave shaper do completely the same with spectrum of the sound. Second thing I can compare with is curves in Photoshop. And if we create something more interesting than just a logarithmic curve, for example, we can just take a wave pattern, something like that, and we're going to remap the linear signal by this wave shape. We can see the resulting shape looks like what wave folder outputs. So basically what this all wave shapers do, they do completely the same. So there are a bunch of algorithms which produce completely different sound results by remapping the input spectrum by these different curves. So, and basically every of these devices is quite simple. It has only the curve and the multiplier. And if we go super far with this multiplier, it starts to create crazy shapes. So let's, maybe I will create a second sound channel, new add instrument track, and I will do something super simple, like I will do just the long MIDI note and something like another polymer with a sine wave. And now I will apply the filter plus on the end. And let's start to deform, and let's also put the spectrum So that's how these wave shapers work, and let's just slowly scroll between them. For example, so basically what we have new after we having Filter Plus device, we have also these 5 new wave shapers. Push. We have hit, which I already showed, soar, we have hole, we have shred. And now maybe we can create something interesting. So in order to use the data produced by the polymer devices, for example by DSR, we need to integrate this Filter Plus inside of nested devices part, so we can put that inside of a fix, and I just drop it here. So now I can use all modulators coming from the polymer itself to control any of parameters inside of Filter Plus. And for example, I will open the filter here, and I will just take the second envelope and control the shred volume. So I can click on this arrow here and add some modulation, and also I will take the basic ADSR from the volume ADSR, take the output and modulate the filter. So we getting very interesting signal from just one node. What we have else? We have a bunch of new filters which are also in character department. We have a fizz filter which has a feedback, and it has color, and it has a second cutoff for the feedback. So we can test also rasp filter. so it has amazing feedback. And next device what we have also, which is super cool in Bitwig, it's kind of let's say filter bank. It's called Sweep, and it looks like the Filter Plus with one additional filter in front, and it can do completely the same, including the blend between output from filter A to filter B after the filter A. So it has basically 3 modes, easily blended with one knob. So if I disable the filter plus here and move the sweep here, what is also very cool, it has additional knob which can improve the control of the both filters. So if I just move this knob left right, it will offset the value of both cutoff frequencies. So basically I can easily make my custom bandpass filter if I just go with with high pass here, for example, high pass 3, and low pass here, and now I can do something like controlling this knob, and I can also, for example, control the hertz, turn LFO in hertz mode, and control the frequency by same LFO, the rate of LFO, and then add the LFO modulation to the filter. So I can create very interesting dynamic modulations. So okay, I can still go very long through new devices, but maybe it's a time now to show a bit most important topic, how we can synchronize TouchDesigner and Bitwig together. So do you have some questions? So I see one good question from Nocturnal Ringtones about does Bitwig have some API to control from Python in TouchDesigner, for example, or any other programming language. So let's check now what we can do from TouchDesigner. Basically, if I just going to open the project I already prepared, so we can scroll a bit inside, and I have also the sound project for that. So that is a super simple TouchDesigner setup. I created from the library the object called superformula in generators, and I modulated several parameters of superformula by data coming from Bitwig. So what we have here, we have several devices from TD Bitwig library. Bitwig main is responsible for connection between TouchDesigner and Bitwig. Then we have Bitwig song, which can receive data about the playback. So basically using Bitwig song we can receive all the time data, so we don't actually need to use MIDI timecode for that. It just depends on your needs. And we have Bitwig remotes, which can capture the modulations from Bitwig and send them to TouchDesigner. So basically, as you can see in Bitwig song, we have some Python callback, and I don't think we can create a new track in Bitwig using Python for now, at least using the devices we have in this menu. We can switch tracks, we can, I think, create and record new clips and slots, but I don't think we can create new tracks. But in order to answer this question 100%, I might need a future research. So let me show how this project works. So for people who survive till the end of the stream, I will share this project. So we will send it to people who registered to the stream. And I also want to introduce a bit my program, what we run on Monday. So on Monday we start our first course about Bitwig and TouchDesigner together, called Audiovisual Production with Bitwig and TouchDesigner. And in comparison to a lot of other courses I produced before, I want to make more attention in this course on the artistical techniques I developed during the years of doing audiovisual performances. So I will not only speaking about the technical things, but also on artistical things. And this course should be quite intensive. So we have planned 6 weeks, but because this course is not recorded, not pre-recorded, it will be partly created during the course. So all people who will join the course will for sure have a lot of influence on the content, because I will with interest and pleasure answer the questions and develop some replies for your questions. And so it will be like first experimental run of this course, which is logically most interesting, I think. And we have 6 weeks and 2 lessons per week, so it's also quite intensive. But because after next week we have a long weekends like Christmas and New Year Eve, we will make small break. So we start first week will be next week, and it will be more in introduction. So we do the introduction to Bitwig and we do introduction for TouchDesigner. So basically, if you are not ever used either Bitwig or TouchDesigner, don't have a fear. It will be starting from quite basics. Then the program is quite still theoretical. I mean, I will develop some more practical cases and examples for this course during the time. But basically, it's starting from the going through every week we have one Bitwig lesson and one TouchDesigner lesson. And we're going from simple things to more complex things. So on the second week, we speak about the modulation system in Bitwig and about nested devices and remote controls. For TouchDesigner, we will go to the working with compositing and 2D effects, content playback. Then third week, we're going already into practical things like how to synchronize Bitwig and TouchDesigner, including not only TD Bitwig plugin, but also using just traditional MIDI and some other secret techniques I'm developing right now. So we have a bunch of choices. Next date is 18th of December, next Monday. And yeah, for today we have still like very discounted price, but I will speak about that a bit later. So then fourth week will be more advanced techniques. So we speak about detailed MIDI control and generative music. Also, we're going to cover the grids, which is that thing where you can create your own modular patches in Bitwig. Then we will cover the using jelly cell shaders for visuals and creating complex visual effects in TouchDesigner. Then 2 last weeks will have more practical topics. We're going to I go to show techniques I developed to make interactive installation. So basically, what is installation in comparison to audiovisual performance installation is something which typically has some scenario, some story. And basically, if you go completely generative, it will be very complex to schedule some fine details which can actually make this installation make people attention to it, to have very detailed story. And we're going to create, I think every one of students can develop their own content, but we're going to work to make something interesting which can be presented as an installation. And 6 weeks will be more about audiovisual performance. So basically, until you're super known artist, to earn money with audiovisual performance might be more complex, but interactive installation is, or installation in any way, is a thing which is typically also well paid. So basically, you will have not only artistic results, but also you might increase your financial situation, or methods how you can finance your life. So basically, that is a program of the course. And actually, we still have today 444 for the price. I think this price will be tomorrow. So I will send to the chat the link to the landing page if you want to join the course. And one also very good news for people who want to join our course is that we're communicating now with a Bitwig team, and they are ready to provide the additional educational discount for our students. So basically now Bitwig already has a winter sale. So let me just open the Bitwig page. So if you go to buy, you have now €100 or $100 discount to the price, and educational license will cost $100 less for the Bitwig Studio. So basically you can get the license for Bitwig for $199 if you are going to join our course. So that is also very good news we got from the Bitwig yesterday. So I'm happy to announce that. So any questions? And if you want to receive the projects I was showing today, you can subscribe on this page. And we will prepare all examples, what I made, and send it to the visitors of the stream. Also prepared small example showing the Z camera depth map. The course for sure will be repeated, but I think not in that format, not that interactive format like now. So I don't know. We will think after the first stream will finish. So logically, if you want to join the course, also I want to tell that we have the possibility to pay the course in two parts, so you don't need to pay all money now. And if you have the European VAT ID and you are not in Germany, I can also make the invoice without VAT, so you have to write me directly in that case. Okay, if you don't have any other question, let's wait for some minutes, and I think that's all for today. Maybe I will fill the silence by some thing I was doing yesterday in Bitwig. Also very cool things I researched. So for example, what I found that in sampler device you have release which send a MIDI note after the MIDI note already played with this device, so that gives you possibility to make a second synthesizer playing on the end of first synthesizer, and that can produce very interesting things. So let me just play. And another example of amazing flexibility of Bitwig, that in second channel, where I have a polymer device, I captured the MIDI from the first synthesizer, so it will automatically follow. And so using MIDI receiver, I can get the MIDI note on any stage. So now I'm receiving the output MIDI after this acoustic bass. Then I built in here the voice stacking, and now I have also inside of this MIDI receiver I have a source effects which can where I can build in the note effects, which that's a family of devices which can deform MIDI data coming from the input. And here I built in the arpeggiator and I transposed all MIDI 1 octave higher. and basically the second synthesizer have 6 voices, and I use here the voice stack. Two voice stacks, and I have ADSR modulation, which is controlling the wavetable shape. So that was one simple project, which is half generative, I would say, but still sounds very melodical. So last question, can I according? So I think if you want to message me, I can give several of my contacts. So so you can use the Telegram Messenger, and my nickname there is PRCDRL for procedural. And also you can write on my mail. So if you have some questions, always welcome. So thank you to everyone. Thank you for being here. I hope it was helpful somehow. So if on the course will be some people who are into modular scenes, we can also research something, because also why I'm super fan of Bitwig, that Bitwig don't need any Max for Life devices to work directly with modulars. So it's also very, very practical. Okay, thanks a lot and bye-bye.